All right, guys. So with all the election stuff going on, a lot of people have forgot about stimulus, right? When are we getting a stimulus? I know some of you guys are probably like, we don't need more stimulus. We don't need to keep spending. We need to just open up the economy as fast as possible and get back to normal. And then I know probably some of you guys are like, we need stimulus. The Democrats look like they're gonna continue to shut down the economy again. Let's get some stimulus. Let's get help to the American people to try to get through this. So I'm going to give you guys an update on the stimulus because I feel that it is very much needed, especially with this surprising tweet that President Trump put out today during the march on Washington today for President Trump. Now, that's a great American sight to see, guys. But before we get into this, my name is Greg Foreman, and you're watching A Black Conservative Perspective. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share A Black Conservative Perspective, a.k.a. a far leftist worst nightmare. You can also follow me on Twitter at GForemanBCP. Let's get it. All right, guys. So President Trump came out today on Twitter this morning and demanded that Congress must now do a COVID relief bill. Needs Democrat support, he says. Make it big and focus. Get it done. And wow, President Trump, man, he has not stopped working even after all these election shenanigans. He is still putting in that work. So if you guys remember, President Trump has suggested multiple times that he wanted to spend big. And when I mean big, I mean even bigger than the 2.4 trillion that the Democrats were looking for in terms of what they wanted to spend. All right, guys. Now, remember, in terms of how the negotiations left off, Steve Mnuchin, who was negotiating at the time, had got the Trump administration offer up to 1.9 trillion. And obviously, the Democrats did not think that was enough. And they basically held off and decided not to do a deal before the election. And that's why we're in the situation we are right now. Now, talks have not started, but the politicians have been whispering and starting to become more vocal about the need for stimulus before the beginning of this year during this lame duck session. And now for the Republicans in the Trump administration, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has taken the lead in terms of the negotiations. And he's just kind of handling it with Nancy Pelosi moving forward. And what Mitch McConnell is looking to do, unsurprisingly to a lot of you guys, is that he wants a slimmer, more targeted relief package similar to the $500 billion measure that they basically have been pushing since September and October. Those measures have been blocked by the Democrats. The Democrats saying that's not nearly enough money that needs to be spent. And in the Republican bill, it targeted small business aid, public health funds, but no stimulus checks or money for cities. And McConnell has basically argued that the economy does not need that much stimulus at this point in order to improve. And he cited the falling unemployment rate and the economic indicators that we have in terms of GDP rebounding and how we may be in a V-shaped recovery as his reasoning for being more fiscally conservative with the stimulus. Now, at this point, again, keep in mind, stimulus talks have not started yet, but Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi have already indicated that their minimum is going to be where they left off with Steve Mnuchin, which is 2.4 trillion. So you can already see an issue here, which is that, Mitch McConnell is starting all the way at 500 billion and the Democrats are starting all the way at 2.4 trillion, which means they're going to have to meet somewhere in the middle if they want to get a stimulus done before the end of this year. I don't necessarily know if that can get done, and I'm not optimistic that it will get done before the end of the year, given how far apart both parties are. And quite honestly, Mitch McConnell is a lot more stingy with money than Steve Mnuchin was. So We'll see how it goes, or even if they get started. Again, guys, they're politicians. They could just be talking outside of their necks just to try to save face with the American public. But Joe Biden, again, who thinks he's going to be taking office in January, has also chimed in on the stimulus, and he's also revealed his plan. And in his plan, he's calling for larger Social Security checks, which was not addressed in the last package. He wants an additional $200 to be added to monthly payments for Social Security recipients. Biden also wants to do student loan forgiveness of a minimum of $10,000. I know a lot of young people and recent graduates are going to be very happy to hear that. And Biden wants to, of course, send more stimulus checks. So it sounds like Biden probably wants to spend even a lot more than the Democrats do in terms of their $2.4 trillion price tag. So we will see if he even gets the opportunity to even try to do that. Right now, what's going on with the courts and Trump's legal battles, we'll see what happens on that moving forward. Many economists and Federal Reserve officials have weighed in on the conversation and have encouraged Congress to get a bill done to get some money into the economy, because they're saying that the signs of recovery are slowing down and that the coronavirus cases are spiking. And because they're spiking and that there's going to be new restrictions, the economy needs stimulus. Quote, "We've got new cases at a record level. We've seen number of states begin to impose limited activity restrictions, and people may lose confidence that it's safe to go out," said Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. At this point, the Fed is clearly worried about how the economy is going to hold up under new lockdowns from these Democratic cities. Now, Wall Street also has a perspective in terms of how they see the stimulus going and how the market may be affected by these ongoing negotiations from the end of this year going into the beginning of next year into the first quarter. Stephen Myro, a managing partner at DC-based Beacon Policy Advisors, said, quote, "There are a lot of challenges to getting something done in the lame duck session," Myro said. "And Republicans may have a rosier view of the economy than Democrats do," he said, "given the strong jobs report and the promise of a vaccine sooner than expected, making them less likely to deal before January." He also quoted saying, "Right now, if anything, the market is overly optimistic about the return to normal with the vaccine. It's likely they don't care if we get a stimulus now or later. The market convinces itself if we don't get more fiscal, the Fed has to step up." But Steve Blitz, who is a chief U.S. economist for T.S. Lombard, weighed in and said he thinks Congress will approve a small stopgap package as a part of a late November budget negotiation process to keep the federal government open through the holiday period and then revisit the issue in February. Quote, "By then, we may need a bigger package to help those who are newly dislocated by the virus," he said. And it sounds like Blitz is basically in McConnell's court in terms of how he sees this going, in terms of getting a smaller, skinny bill kind of done now rather than later. Then the idea for some folks on Wall Street is that the market will dictate how the politicians will respond in terms of their willing and ableness to get a stimulus deal done. However, some are saying that the market is not Washington's biggest boogeyman. The virus is actually the biggest boogeyman. Chris Dillon, who is a capital markets investment specialist for T. Rowe Price, said, quote, "The virus is still alive and well," Dillon said in an interview. "The momentum of it without an organized federal response and a lack of transition from the Trump to the Biden administration leaves the U.S. vulnerable in the near term, even with Pfizer news. Right now is not a time to be a hero in your asset allocation, even with a supportive, stimulative environment and more fiscal support coming." Now, it sounds like, he's saying that you need to be a little bit more safer with your assets, make your portfolio a little bit more conservative, maybe adjust your allocation to be more bond oriented rather than stock oriented. Maybe not rely so much on individual securities. Be diversified. All the things that I basically tell you guys anytime I talk about the financial topics when it comes to weathering the volatility that may be coming up based off of the perceived negotiations of this stimulus package in this late quarter of this year. The stimulus negotiations and the virus, the perceived danger of the virus and how we're doing in cases are the main drivers of the short-term volatility that we're seeing in the marketplace. That's in my opinion. So we will see how that goes. But my quick opinion in regards to this overall situation, honestly, it was a surprise for me to hear President Trump call for more stimulus. At this point, I thought that stimulus was basically dead. So I'm really happy that he kind of ignited the process back up, because I do think we do need more stimulus in the economy. I think we do need to be physically smart and conservative about it. I think the magic number is probably about 1 trillion. But again, like I've said before in the past, if we're going to spend big, we need to spend with the idea of opening up, because we cannot keep closing down and spending and spending and spending. Eventually, debt will catch up to us. But at the same time, it looks like the Democrats are dead set on having the economy shut back down. So we will see what happens at this point. But I just want to give you guys an update in terms of what's going on in stimulus. I don't know exactly what the politicians are going to do. They could just be blowing steam to try to save face in regards to what's going on with the stimulus. Who knows? So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.